Welcome, everyone. My name is Leon Garcia, and I am a proud member of the Choose to Change mentoring program. The Choose to Change mentoring program is a self supporting Christian based group sponsored by the Choose to Change Foundation. There is no fee to attend this class, but we do encourage donations from our members and to anyone else who believes in what we do. The only requirement for membership is a sincere desire to change your life. We are on a mission to restore families by inspiring, challenging, and equipping men to become better fathers, husbands, and leaders in our community. So, if you are ready to change your life, then you are in the right place. Through this program, you will learn exactly where to start your life change journey, tools and resources to keep you going, and a support system to help you reach your goals. The Choose to Change mentoring program believes in three key principles of life. Number one, we believe in the life changing power of God through faith in Jesus Christ. Number two, we believe that God has already done his part and that it is your responsibility to learn to do your part. Number three, success or failure is a choice, and the choice is yours. So if you are ready, say, I am ready. Thank you guys for coming today. Orlando Salinas has something very powerful for you men today. Whoever's online, thank you for joining us online. Send us a comment to let us know you're there. Uh, Choose to Change has really changed my life a lot. It's been doing a lot. Orlando, when I first came in here, I can't ever stop saying it because it's so funny. I remember sitting back there and being like, man, what can this guy teach me? But after sitting there and listening to this man speak and the way what he showed me what to do, and these things up here, he's probably going to talk about them today. It's the process, the desire, the faith, the mindset, the attitude, your habits, and your lifestyle equals your results. When I started putting these things into my life and applying them into my life, it really changed a lot of things. So, without any further ado, I'm going to present to you here the CEO of the CEO and founder of the foundation of the Choose to Change Foundation, Orlando Salinas.
All right. Let me get my glasses here. Got my glasses. I need my glasses today. Guys, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching us online. If you're excited, well, I'm excited. All right. So everybody doing all right? Yeah? We're good? We're going to talk about, tonight I was thinking about what I wanted to share tonight, this evening. And I was thinking of life, living life on life's terms. In the recovery industry, in the recovery programs, if you've ever been in recovery, who's ever been in recovery here or at a rehab center? There you go. I'm sure if you've been in a rehab center or in recovery and you're watching us online, let me know. And I learned a few things going to rehab. And one of the things that I learned, especially in the AA program, I learned that getting sober and living in recovery is exactly the same thing as just wanting to change your life and start making your life better. In other words, people that have problems with drugs and alcohol, or that are drug addicts, what happens is you wind up going to what we call rehab, right? Or to some kind of rehabilitation program or meetings, and you start learning about what this recovery process is all about. And that's exactly what happened to me. So then you start learning a new way of thinking and a new way of living. Well, let me read it. In other words, when a drug addict decides to enter into recovery or the rehab center, everything he was doing before that is going to have to change. Who has experience or knows that that's true? Who knows that that's true? In other words, you were a drug addict, you were doing something crazy, you were on drugs, whatever it is you were doing. When you decide to step into a rehab center, what you learn at a rehab center, or one of the things you start learning, is everything that you were doing has to stop and has to change, right? So, in other words, anything, let me continue reading it. Let me read it again. In other words, when a drug addict decides to enter a recovery or go into rehab, everything he was doing before rehab is going to have to change, starting with the way he thinks and his actions. Anytime you set out to do something new, and here's what I want to talk about today. Anytime that you set out to do something new in your life, there's always two things that have to start changing: your mind and your actions. Your mind and your actions. So, what I'm trying to get to is that when I went to rehab, I learned that there was a lot of things I was going to have to change about in my actions and my thinking. If you want to change your life, and maybe you're not a drug addict. In here, we deal with a lot of ex-cons and people in recovery. But anybody who would want to change their life to make their life better, they just don't like their life. They're not drug addicts or they're not alcoholics, but they just want to make their life better, right? Maybe they dropped out of high school. Maybe they never went to college, and now they're 25, 30 years old. They don't have a good job. They don't have, they're struggling with money, and they need to get a better job. So they go back to school. They start doing something different. That's what you have to do when you're going to change your life. You're going to have to change the way you think, and you're going to have to change the actions that you've been doing in the past. I got ahead of myself. Anytime you set out to do or start something new, there is two things that you have to start changing: your mindset and your actions. Let me give you an example. Losing weight. Who's ever tried to lose weight? Okay, if you're serious and you talk to anybody that's going to help you to lose weight, you're going to have to change two things: your actions, what you're eating, and how you think. Deciding to work out and bulk up. Maybe you want muscle, right? Guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to change some things you're doing, like get off your bed, get off the sofa, and then start thinking differently about working out on a daily basis. You have to change some things. A new job. If you get a new job, hopefully you do this. You're excited about your new job. You're going to not do whatever it is you're doing before, and you're going to dress up, and you're going to get there on time. You start thinking and doing differently. Starting your own business. If you ever want to start your own business, it's completely different than working for somebody. So the point here is that what I'm trying to get to is that we're here to change our lives. I want to make it as simple as possible. Hopefully I can do that, because I seem to complicate things sometimes. But changing our lives requires something to change. It's in the sentence, changing your life. And sometimes that's the difficult part. Doing the different things we have to do. Changing the habits that we have to change. Start thinking differently. Those are the hard things to do. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about living life on life's terms. This term comes from the recovery programs. And you learn this. Who's ever heard that saying before? Living life on life's terms. Wow, I'm surprised. I guess I was in recovery for a long time. I learned this in the AA program. And we have to live life on life's terms. And what I want to do today is kind of explain exactly what living life on life terms means. All right? So in the Bible, there's a verse, and welcome those of you that just joined us. You're at the Choose to Change mentoring class, and we are talking about living life on life's terms. In the Bible, there's a book called Philippians. And it was written by an apostle. His name was Apostle Paul. And this guy was in prison when he was reading this. He had gone through all kinds of trials and temptations and whoopings and just all kinds of crazy. And now he's in prison. And he wrote this letter to the Philippians. And I want to read it to you because it talks about living life on life's terms. Learning to deal with your life without having to drink and drug. Learning to deal with your life without having to go crazy and going back to prison. This is what we're talking about today. Philippians 4 through 13. Listen to what it says. He says, rejoice evermore. Again, I say rejoice. He's in prison. He says, let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. And don't worry about nothing. But in everything, in prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, he says, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God will be with you. And then he goes on to say, and finally, brothers, whatever things are good, whatever things are honest, whatever things are noble, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there's any virtue, if there's any praise, think on these things. The things which you learned and received and heard in me, he says, do those things, and the God of peace will be with you. Listen to what it says next. Remember, he's in prison, trying to help somebody out here. And then he says, and then rejoice in the Lord greatly. No, he says, I rejoice in the Lord greatly. Listen to what it says. At last your care for me has flourished again. In other words, he never got a letter from nobody. Nobody ever went to see him. And he was wondering what was happening. And now that finally somebody came to see him, somebody sent him a letter, he's saying, I rejoice greatly that at last your care for me has finally flourished. In other words, man, you finally looked me up. You finally wrote to me. He says, but I know you cared, but you just didn't have opportunity. So in his mind, he's thinking, maybe they just couldn't come, right? They didn't have time to write a letter. That's what he's saying. Who's ever been in prison? Who's ever waited for a letter and you didn't get it? You're just waiting for the mailman. And they didn't say your cell number. And then you wait to the end. Maybe he just forgot the extra ones. I know the feeling. So this is what he's saying. But listen, the reason I'm reading this is for the next part here. He says, not that I speak in regards of need. In other words, it's not necessarily that I need anything. And then he says these powerful words. Remember, we're talking about living life on life's terms. He says, for I have learned. Let me repeat that. For I have learned in whatever state I am, in that to be content. He said, I know how to be abased, and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things, here we go again, I have learned both to be full and to be hungry. And then he says the famous words that we all know. I can do all things through who? Christ. Who what? Strengthens us. See, we like that verse. We like to say, I can do all things. But what he's telling you before that is that you're going to have to learn how to be humbled and how to have something. And that's what I want to help you with today. How do you deal with life when life is not going your way? Living life on life's terms. I read an article. I was reading an article called Living Life on Life's Terms. And I thought I'd share it with you. And we can go through a few points here to see if something you can relate to. Let's talk about living life on life's terms. Listen to what this article said. He says, when you've just come out of rehab or prison, the mere prospect of living your day-to-day life is overwhelming. Who's ever felt that? Chavarria, have you? It's like, I remember when I got out, it wasn't overwhelming for me. I was on it. But for many people, they struggle because they've never lived sober. They've never knew how to pay bills and work without getting high, without drinking. We've never learned. I didn't know how to do that. I learned. He says, as a member of a recovery community, you can call this a recovery community, or a community of people who want to change their lives, who want a better life. This is what we are here. We're a support system, a relationship-based support system for anybody who wanting a better life. This is what we're here for. He says, as a new member to this community, you have undertaken the task to completely restructuring your life. That's what we're here. We're restructuring our lives. Old addictive habits, listen to what he says, and behaviors have been identified. Let me tell you what that means. I identified that I was a loser drug addict. I was a loser father. I was a loser husband. I was just a loser. I identified that. That was me. I don't know where you're at, but this was me. With the hopes of eliminating all this stuff, and I had a list of healthier habits and behaviors that have been selected to replace all these bad ones that I had. This is the essence of recovery and life change, the life change journey. But simply knowing what you want to do does not necessarily mean that you'll be able to do it easily. Right? Old habits are truly hard to change, he says. And addictive thought patterns. Addictive thought patterns, the mindset, are buried in your thinking. And this is why this process is so important. When you start understanding this process I teach here, that first you have to want to change, desire. Then you have to add faith to that. Faith in God, faith in yourself, and faith in the process. Faith in the process. Once you get those two out of the way, now you start working on your main problem, which is your mindset. Really, it's how you think. I'm not going to go over it all right now, but you're just going to have to trust me on this. Once you start working on this is the core of your problem, of your life change. Learning to think differently. Why is that important? Because how you think affects your attitude. It affects your habits, which takes you to your lifestyle, right? And how you live basically takes you to your what? Results in life, which could be good or bad, right? This is how this stuff works. So, but simply knowing what you want to do does not necessarily mean that you'll be able to do it easily. Old habits are truly hard to change, and addictive thought patterns are buried in your thinking. The struggle to release yourself from your former way of living, the struggle to release yourself from the former way of living, when you used to live, how you used to live, and think, and replace it with a more effective thought patterns, lies at the very core of the recovery process, period. This is why I teach this program. This is why I teach this process. Because this is exactly what it took for me to finally change my life. I started changing the way I thought, and I started changing what I did, my actions. In fact, many champions of the recovery process have devised a sort of recovery motto that expresses this struggle, and they call it living life on life's terms. So, how does living life on life's terms work? How do we live life on life's terms? Does anybody want to tell me what that means? Anybody want to tell me what that phrase means to you? Living life on life's terms. Anybody want to give it a shot? Diana?
To me, that means that life happens and you have no control on what's going to happen in life.
Okay.
So you have to come to terms with life and decide how you're going to act and react to it.
Okay. Anybody else? And this is a big issue, because especially if you were a drug addict like I was, 13 years in prison, 10 years of putting needles in my arm, loser. I'm talking about loser. I won't go into all my story right now. But when I finally made a decision that I wanted to change my life, man, it was the hardest thing I ever did. And I couldn't see, one of the things, obstacle for me was, how do you live without drinking and drugging? Whoever had that problem? I couldn't see that. In my mind, I could not see that. I remember going to a party, right? Or somewhere. There always had to be beer and pase, always, right? And then I remember, someone being there and they wouldn't do cocaine, right? I said, what? You don't do cocaine? No. What's wrong with you? Serious. Or when I met somebody that didn't drink, what? So what do you do? It just didn't make sense to me. My thinking was warped, was twisted. By the way, in case you haven't heard me say it lately, you're twisted. We're twisted. We're twisted individuals. That's without drugs. You add drugs to it, man. So so living life on life's terms, I couldn't get it. For me, it meant I had to live life without drinking and drugging. That's what it meant for me. And that was really hard for me to accept, like Diana was saying. When you decide that you are ready to live life on life's terms, then you acknowledge that life is bigger and more complicated than you thought. But this is easier said than done, or understood. That's why the act of acceptance, I think you use that word, you accept, is such an important tenet in recovery and the journey of the process of change. Once we understand that we can't control every aspect of our lives and our environment, we usually experience one of three responses. And this is what I want to go over with you today. Maybe you've experienced or have responded to life in one of these three ways that this article explained. He says, number one, you're going to respond by trying to defy the nature of life. We don't like the way life works. We don't like the way the system works. We don't like the way the pastor preaches. We don't like the way they do things. We don't like the way the parole officer deals with us. We don't like the way the judge dealt with us. We don't like the way our family talks to us. We start defying the nature of life. All of a sudden, we start seeing all these flaws in people. Perhaps we feel like life isn't fair. A reasonable assertion. Or that things should be fundamentally different. Shouldn't be that way. Who's ever said that? That's just not fair. Shouldn't be that way. I have. It's not fair. This is what the famous words of teenagers and kids, right? It's not fair. That's not fair. And sometimes the kids come out on us, I know. That's not fair, man. You can't be putting that car down. Rather than accepting that we cannot change the nature of life, we may decide to live in protest of this. That's just saying, right, I'm not accepting it. You're defying. You're trying to change. It's like a play, and you're the director, and you're trying to place all the actors in their place, right? And you think to yourself, if only everybody would just do what they're supposed to do, everything would be great, the book says. Everything would be fine. But you're not the director, and you're not in charge. And we have to learn to live on life's terms. Doing so creates this illusion of power, despite the fact that everything from the weather to the behavior of others drives on the road. Okay, let me repeat that. In other words, when you're trying to defy or change everything, it says, doing so creates the illusion of power. Despite the fact that everything from the weather to the behavior of other drivers on the road is completely out of control. In other words, you can't change it. But yet we blame the weather. You can't change it. But yet we blame the traffic. No, it's you that has to change. Like maybe getting up earlier. Every time I say something, Chavarria, you're like, boom. You got me on that one. So that's one response we get. We defy. We don't like the way things are. This is what this article is saying. One of three responses. He says, the first one is we defy. The second one, he says, is deciding that our intentions trump fate. Deciding that our intentions trump fate. In other words, basically what he's saying is, my way is better. I'm not going to wait for an outcome that I can't control. Let me see, I didn't quite understand this one, so let me read this one. He says, we've already acknowledged that our intentions and our desires and actions are part of what it means to live for us. In other words, who's ever said, that's just the way I am? That's just the way I am. I've always been this way. I remember I used to say that so much. That's just the way I am. Why do you drink? That's just the way I am. Why do you like cocaine? That's just the way I am. Why do you always lie? That's just the way I am. Really, we use these excuses because we've never took the initiative to do something with our lives, to make a difference. And then we think that our way is like, this is how I've always done it. But you're not doing anything. But it can be easy for us to decide that these elements of our existence should take precedence. In other words, our way should control. In other words, fate takes a back seat. I'm not going to wait for things to happen on life's terms. I'm going to do it my way. This is what he's talking about here. The problem is that with so much out of our control, this decision often contradicts our life experience. Anger and cynicism results. So I see so many people that stop using drugs and alcohol, they're always mad. They're mad. both of which can serve as triggers to going back to your old life. In other words, the only life you've ever known. And that's the vicious cycle of a drug addict and alcoholic. Or we see this in church. We see this a lot in church, right? We see people come to church, they give their life to Jesus Christ, they're excited about life, they're ready, this time they're really going to change. Where, I don't want the life, I want my wife back, I want things to get better, I want to be a good man now, and then things start happening, and what happens? They go right back to where they started. Because we don't want to let just things unravel for us in God's timing. We want to do it our way. And it's not always easy, I understand. But this is the dilemma we find ourselves in. We have to learn to live life on life terms. Does anybody have anything here? Anybody want to share something? Before we go to the third one and the last one? What time is it? Making good time. I have a gift, by the way, for everybody who came today. If you came today, you have a gift, a special gift. And it's a monetary gift. So if you didn't make it today, you stuck out. But everybody's getting a gift card today. It's serious. Well, except you guys. You guys are staff. So I'll get that when we pick up our donation. Let's close with let me give you the third response that people have. So the first one was, you defy things that are happening. Second one is, you decide that life is. The first one was, you try to defy the nature of life. Second one is, you decide that your intentions trump fate. And the third one is the fatal one. Deciding that life is simply too much to handle. And I've seen this time and time again. I got friends, or so-called that used to be friends, that died in prison, died of cirrhosis of the liver, died with a needle in the arm in a hotel. It was just too much for them. It was just too much to bear. And sometimes I wonder why. Why is it so hard for some people? I mean, it was really, really difficult for me. If you know my story, I would have rather just killed my worthless self. I'm serious. Robbing the store for one more hit on my daughter's 4th birthday, going to prison for the rest of my life, just being a loser drug addict, loser father, loser husband, and just under knowing that I ruined my family's life, that I'm in prison with my wife and my 2 daughters with no money, no car, no place to stay, nothing. And it's like, what have I done? I would have rather killed my worthless self. But this is the whole reason I'm here. Because I chose to believe in the impossible. And that's where I find so many people that walk into those doors, that they're in a situation that's really impossible. But that's where God comes in. And there's some things that you just won't be able to change. I wasn't able to change what I had done. I wasn't able to change that I was going to prison. I wasn't able to change the way my family thought, the way the judge saw me, I couldn't change my criminal record. I couldn't change anything. I had to accept what was coming my way. This is a scary one, this author says. But it's common for so many struggling with accepting in the recovery, or acceptance in the recovery. They decide that it's simply too much to deal with. This is a form of fatalism. In other words, you wind up being, for me, it was be either do I do what Peter did or do I do what Judas did? Right? If you're not familiar with that, Peter decided, he denied Christ. He decided that I don't think I'm going to do this. But Christ told him, man, you're going to deny me. He denied him, but he repented. He accepted his wrong. He accepted what he had done. He accepted that he messed up. He accepted that, and he repented. Judas killed his worthless self. So this is where we find ourselves. You know, I was in a juvenile yesterday. Was it yesterday? On Tuesday. We now go into the juvenile rehab center. I go every other Tuesday. And I'm talking to these 14, I think it was from 14 to 16. There were just 8 kids, 8 young adults, young men. And I'm trying to be as real with them as possible. And it's hard to break through there. But I was able to break through there and help them understand life, that life is real. And that the choices they're making today is going to affect them for the rest of their lives. It's pretty awesome to watch. But they have to come to terms with some things just like we do. This is a form of fatalism, he says, in which the person ultimately determines that there's no reasonable way forward. At this point, you give up on your own intentions and desires, and you resign yourself to the grim reality that it's not going to work for you. But I know better. Who knows better? I know better. There is a better way. Any of the above can be common reactions to a lack of control over your own life. But it doesn't have to be this way. Instead, you can resolve to live life on life's terms and make the most of your experience in spite of it all. We can do it. And this is what this program is all about. This is what church is all about. This is what this fellowship is all about. To help all of us live life on life terms. And today I'm happen to be talking about this. Next week I might be teaching you something else. I got some other things in mind. But we're always going to learn something to move forward, right? To help us better our life, to help us change our life. Because if you were like me, I didn't know how to change my life. And if you're here, then there's something inside of you that says, I want to change my life. I want to make my life better. And that's what we're here for. Anybody want to share something before I close? Can I have a water, please?
You know, right now, brother, you were talking about life and how it comes at you. You know what I mean? To me, I came here and I decided to do it. I chose to change, right? And to do the things that I was supposed to do. And I said, man, it's going to be easy from here on out, right? But it wasn't like that, you know? Life threw me a curveball.
A curveball.
You know what I mean? And it was up to me to choose whether to continue to want to change and be that man that I have been called to be.
The father,
the leader, you know, and that hit me very hard, you know. And but my desire and my faith was what kept me coming, you know what I mean? And the fellowship, like you said, you know, that's what you're here for, you know, to empower us. And this class that you've been teaching, you know, it really empowered me and equipped me with things to be able to handle life, you know what I mean, in general, you know, of how it comes at you, you know, because a lot of times you think that, oh, okay, you know, I'm coming to church, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and everything's going to be gravy, you know what I mean? But then here comes a fly and lands in the gravy, you know what I mean? And messes it all up. But you just got to learn how to, you know, throw that fly away or do what you got to do and continue to press forward, you know, cook it a little bit longer, and the gravy should taste better.
Yeah. Life
That's
is
it, brother.
Yeah, thank you. You know, and Leon here is man, such an inspiration to many of us here, because of what he went through. And I don't think he'll mind me saying, but he lost his wife. That's what he's talking about during COVID. And I don't know if you think that that's not hard to deal with. I think that's Devastating. But that's how life is. A sickness, a disease. And if you don't learn to deal with them, then you're never going to help yourself or anybody else. In his case, he had 2 kids. How do you think they felt? Somebody had to step up to the plate and make a difference. And this is what we're here for. I am out to challenge men to step up to the plate and make it happen. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not. I won't even try to kid you. I tell people, if you want easy, you might as well give up now. There's no easy way. Either way, it's not easy. Giving up is not easy, but it's easier than facing the challenges. Because people rather give up and take the... But let's close with the Serenity Prayer. Who's ever heard of the Serenity Prayer? I learned this in recovery as well. And this pretty much sums it up. Something that you can pray for yourself. Something you can ask God for. Because I do it every day. Not this prayer, but I pray every day. Because I need help. I don't know about you, I need help every day. Every day. Every day my mind wants to twist. Every day. And the Serenity Prayer simply says like this. God, grant me the serenity or the peace to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can. And the wisdom to know the difference. That's a powerful, when I learned that prayer, I said, wow, that's a powerful prayer. The Apostle Paul put it like this. I have learned. Philippians 4:11 and 13. I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. I know how to be abased and I know how to abound everywhere and in all things. I have learned both to be full and to be hungry, both to be abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yes, sir. There you go. Recognize my errors and not to blame others. I learned a little saying like this. If it is to be, it's up to me. I have to go make it happen. I have to deal with life on life's terms. I have to supply for my families or provide for my family. I have to work. I have to humble myself. I have to let some things go. I have to learn some new skills. I have to do that. So, any questions? Yes. Okay, wow. Okay.
It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as a pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next.
All right. There you go. So, guys, I hope that helped you a little bit. Living life in life's terms. We're going to need to do that. I want to go ahead and pass around the donation bucket. We always pick up a donation for those of you that can or want to. This is just voluntary. We are a self-supporting group. And here you go, Chavaria. And right now we're working on some marketing projects so that we can raise funds outside these walls. We're working on learning how to get some grants so that we can go more into the prison, more into rehab centers, and so that I can do more everywhere I go, give away free books, do free seminars. I do a whole seminar on all this and how to change your life. I can go on and on and on talking because I've learned a lot. In the last 24 years, those of you that are new, in the last 24 years, when I went back to prison at the age of 34 years old, I wanted to change my life and I didn't know how. And I dedicated my life to change in prison. And everything I lived, ate, and breathed change. I knew the Bible, I had Jesus Christ in my heart, but I didn't know how to change. And when I found out that I had to change my mindset, I had to change my habits, I had to change my attitude, and I figured all this out. There's 24 years in the making here. It's not new. I didn't come up with this. If any place you go on the face of this earth, when it comes to growth and change and leadership, recovery, you're going to learn all this. You're going to learn it. And I did. I walked out of prison at the age of 40, and I've been out 18 years of prison. And I've done more in 18 years than I've ever done in my whole life. I'm about to turn 59 years old, and I have plans for the next 20. All because I chose to believe in the impossible. So we're raising money. You can go to this Choose the Chosen watching online. You can go to our website and donate. You can buy books online. Bring me a shirt, brother, or come be the model. We got these shirts. These shirts going to the top. Because this is what I said when I get out of prison. I said, I'm going to the top. You know why? Because it's too crowded at the bottom. They're pretty cool shirts. People like them. We have those shirts for $20. In fact, all our shirts are $20. That's a special we have. All of them, $20. Not all together, but and they got these small ones. Also got kids ones. So got caps, and I got books back there. So guys, I hope I helped you. I hope it worked. This worked for you. That's all I have. Thank you for watching us online, and we'll see you next week.